So before I do a deep dive into the role-playing game universe of WWE, let's put it right out there. This is probably a mobile game. It'll probably amount to nothing. It'll be some sort of weird mobile pay-to-win experience. But let's theorise for a second. Hello and welcome to FTTR. I am Ewan McQuaid, and today we are talking about news that broke about a week and a half ago, about WWE gaming. Now, we like wrestling games here, don't we? We like WWE 2K22. It's great. But what we're going to talk about is a quote from Stephanie McMahon from the Investors Call, in which she stated, she said, WWE recently signed a new deal in the role-playing game space that will be announced soon. Caveat: we also continue to evaluate the metaverse, both walled garden environments that already exist as well as decentralized properties. Look to hear more in the coming months. Nonsense, metaverse nonsense. But RPG. Now, for anyone who's unfamiliar, an RPG is a role-playing game, not dissimilar. You've got Mass Effects, you've got Skyrims, you've got Witches, you've got Elden Rings. That is what comes to mind when I think of an RPG. And a lot of modern games have RPG elements in them, like skill trees, decision-based mechanics, right? So that got me thinking, how would this look? Now, I think the obvious way is to sort of look at my career and add more role-playing elements into that. Maybe build a whole game around that concept if you're working your way up through WWE. That could be interesting, but it's been done. And what I want to get at here is I want them to go full RPG high fantasy with this. I think, right, you're looking at the perfect game to model a WWE RPG on. Brutal Legend, starring Jack Black. Now, that game was more of a hack and slash, but I think the world and the way it incorporated, rock and metal and in every element, I think that would, you take that philosophy, put it in WWE, and then you've got a really interesting world of high fantasy. You could have the Undertaker's kingdom. You could have Triple H's kingdom. You could have all these kingdoms with monsters that are built out of, you've got ones that are made out of ring apron. You've got steel chairs that come at you. There's so much high concept stuff that you could do within an RPG single player space. Am I being weird? Do you not think that would be cool? Like having almost like WWE All-Stars style graphics where they're really buff He-Man-esque characters with big swords, like John Cena with just a massive sword on his back. Can you not picture that? I think that'd be sick, and it could be like this open world sort of scape that you've got all these different kingdoms, all these different side quests. You interact with all these different wrestlers who are each playing, characterized versions of themselves. I think would be really fun. I think WWE and 2K need to step away from the simulation formula. I get we've got Battlegrounds, which again does not count. Let's not count Battlegrounds because that was just not deep enough to even be considered for anything. You don't have to make it about wrestling matches. You can use WWE as just a vessel and then build a world around it. I think that's the issue that a lot of sports games tend to have. FIFA Street was banging. That was arcade style football. That was great. Stuff like, I'm blanking on some of the stuff. Crush Hour. Right? WWE Crush Hour. That was sick. There's so many ways they could go with an RPG that I'm just going to be disappointed if it is just a mobile game, because I have all these ideas. I'm picturing wrestling mixed with a Meatloaf album cover. Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. WWE meets Meatloaf, sprinkling a little bit of Brutal Legend. I think you're onto a winning formula there. I think it'd be really unique and really cool. even if it was just an indie dev that was putting it together. You've seen some of the great wrestling games like Guacamelee. If you haven't played Guacamelee, check it out because it is a brilliant, brilliant game. That also takes the concept of wrestling and lucha libre and puts it in a unique fantasy setting. So I want to see them do this. I want to see them do something really unique and really creative with that aspect of WWE. Role playing. It doesn't have to be matches in a ring. You can create unique landscapes and storylines without it being in the ring. It can be just high concept, weird fantasy. Labyrinth meets WWE, Brutal Legend meets WWE, Meatloaf meets WWE. I'm saying all these things, but come on, you'd want to see that, wouldn't you? Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, which makes me sad. But here's hoping to this RPG and that it's good. Okay. Let me know your thoughts on this RPG down in the comments below, and I'll try and reply to every single one of you. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.